Packers returning to practice yesterday. It was a closed practice, but the media was open for attendance. And maybe one thing to kind of keep an eye on, potentially, reporters at practice noticed that after practice, Jordan Love spent quite a bit of time, it seems like, talking with Matt LaFleur and a couple of the head trainers. And reporters noticed that his left thumb was bandaged, was wrapped up. And noted a couple of reporters also mentioned that he was handing off with his right instead of his left. So at least it's not on his throwing hand, but still nothing official from the team and such. And for what it's worth, though, too, reporters who were watching practice noted that it seemed like he was full go and not overly concerned or anything like that. But I would still throw up there, thumb injury, something to kind of keep an eye. At least it's not on the throwing hand, right? At least it's not on there. So got that going for us, which is nice. But Packers did get some guys returning to practice too. Some players who did not participate in the game on Saturday. Rasheed Walker, who did some individual drills coming back to practice and such. But the way Jordan Morgan has been playing, I don't know, it might be a little bit more of a battle and such. But, we'll kind of see how that shapes out. But Emmanuel Wilson and Marshawn Lloyd both went through drills yesterday. As we know, those two did not play in the game on Saturday. Kamal Hayden also returned to practice. But getting maybe a little bit healthier. Packers are going to be flying out to Indianapolis tomorrow. Remember, they got some joint practices with the Colts and such. And according to Matt LaFleur from a few days ago, the initial plan was Jordan Love starters will not be playing in that preseason game against the Colts. We'll see if that changes, though, considering the product that we saw on Saturday nights against the Jets and such. But I want to go back to some comments from Sunday from some of the coaches, some of the position coaches, some of the coordinators, and such about the game. Matt LaFleur talking, and especially after the game, Matt LaFleur was not happy with the sloppy performance from his team. But he said the NFL officials, because usually you see officials come into training camp and practice, and kind of, help out and give an idea for some of the players, maybe how things are going to be called and such. But he said officials will be here the week of Seattle. Normally they come earlier in camp. According to Rob Demovsky, though, LaFleur wouldn't use that as an excuse for some of the penalties. Also said they might have missed one on Amar Johnson's touchdown. Quote, "I don't think we were in a legal formation." Rich Bisaccia, special teams. We saw special teams miscue on Saturday with McCole Hardman fumbling a punt, right? Rich Bisaccia saying about Hardman's muffed punt was out of character and an attempt to show what he could bring to the team, knowing there may be limited opportunities. Quote, "He knows he's in a battle to make it. He's been practicing well, and he's made good plays in practice." But that was, for a veteran. For a veteran, I understand you're looking to make a play, you're in a battle for a spot, but for a veteran in that situation, you got to know better than that, right? I mean, first of all, you let the ball drop. You let the punt drop. And to try to go up there to cradle it, pick it up, and return it, and ultimately it turned into a fumble and such, you got to know better as a veteran, especially when you are in a tight competition like that. And on the flip side, all right, you had a veteran making mistakes like that. A little disappointing that a guy like Malik Heath, who's probably fighting with McCall Hardman for that final spot, had some issues catching the ball too. Jeff Hafley also chatting it up with a little media, brought up players that he thought played well were Stackhouse, Brinson, Sorrell, Enagbare, Cox, Wooden, Brooks, a lot of defensive lineman players there. Hafley said he was disappointed that all the work and emphasis the Packers put into taking the ball away in practice did not result in any takeaways in the game. New defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington said a point of emphasis after the game will be keeping quarterbacks in the pocket. Quote, for us to be good as a unit, we're going to face a lot of mobile quarterbacks. We have to do a good job rushing and trapping the quarterback. Obviously, I think a lot of that is referring to Justin Fields and his scampering touchdown in the game on Saturday. So, from my perspective, just from what I was watching, not necessarily, when I go to a preseason game, I'm not watching about really the scoring and the big plays and such. Like I try to look at individual players, maybe players I'm not too familiar with, or new players, newcomers and such. Try to look at that because you're not getting that on TV. And I wanted to watch Bo Melton, see how he was doing, transitioning from a wide receiver to a corner. I wanted to watch a little Kalen King. I wanted to watch that defensive line like Stackhouse. I wanted to watch Stackhouse in that. And to see how he was doing, because especially under running downs, he was probably going to be a guy that everybody's assuming he's going to replace TJ Slate. I wanted to watch Sorrell. I wanted to watch a lot of those defensive line groups. And on one hand, too, it is at times maybe hard to gauge, hard to dissect or grade or analyze a lot going on because we know they're not scheming. Offensively, defensively, we know they're not scheming. They're not going to tip their cards. They're not going to showcase their playbook in preseason games or anything like that. But I got to say, defensively, Kalen King, I thought, played very well. I think he, in training camp, preseason, he's one of those guys that's fighting for a roster spot. Not only for a roster spot, but I would argue a considerably high roster spot when you look at the corner depth chart outside of Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Hobbs. Then you throw Javad Bullard in there as a slot corner, although he was getting, obviously, some safety play in the preseason because of the injuries to the cornerback group. I mean, the next guy up is maybe fifth on a depth chart, but probably going to get some play time. And I thought Kalen King did well. I thought he did well in his action on the game on Saturday. Breaking up a pass in the end zone. And those are the type of games, okay, let's see a couple more of these in these next two games. Continue to stack that success. Continue to put together good plays like that. Because let's face it, too, with that cornerback position, guys like Kalen King, their number might be called upon fairly early in the season. They may be getting some play time early in the season. I thought Carrington Valentine, in his limited amount of reps, played well. And he's going to be, to me, this is going to be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out. We've talked at length about the talented group of receivers that this Packers defense is going to have to go up against throughout this regular season, whether it's from the Lions and St. Brown or the Vikings and Jefferson, Roma Dunze, with the Bears, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with the Bengals, DK Metcalf with the Steelers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know they're going up against a very, all season long, ton of good receivers. These corners are going to be tested. And Carrington Valentine, from all accounts, is having a very good camp. He may be third on the depth chart behind Keyshawn and Hobbs as the outside corners. But Valentine is having a good camp. I thought he had a solid game on Saturday night. So those two, from a corner perspective, I thought showcase. The defensive line was something I was really kind of trying to watch a little bit. And this one was I'll admit it, at times kind of hard to really get a good gauge of what was going on because there were a few times where that defensive line as a unit, and this was when I was really wanting to watch Stackhouse. Because if he's going to be that early run support guy, that guy that's going to be on the first and second downs to help stop the run. There were a few times in that game when I was watching the defensive line group, and the Jets' offensive line was just kind of having their way. Now, I know a lot of these defensive linemen graded out well. Individually, they graded out well. Jeff Hafley, specifically mentioned a few of them. So individually, pass rush situations, Sorrell graded out well. As a group, there were too many times, in my opinion, I should say too many times, but there were a few times where it just felt like that defensive line group was getting overwhelmed by the Jets' offensive line. And there was times where they were just getting pushed off to the one side and creating these running lanes for those running backs, for that running game. Wasn't the whole game. Wasn't the whole game. But there were a few times where it's like, ooh, getting a little manhandled there. But again, that kind of comes into play. It's like, okay, just running a straight basic, no creative, no scheming defensive, front or stunts or pressures or anything like that. So you kind of have to balance that a little bit. And when you look at these individual players, you kind of look at, okay, who was winning some one-on-ones, who was winning some individuals, who was just, maybe kind of flying all over the place. I thought Hopper had himself a good game, a guy who's maybe battling for a roster spot. Isaiah Simmons, he was okay. I think a couple times, maybe a little bit late in the action on the defensive side. Definitely showcased his speeds at individual points in the game. But I think right now trending, he's got a spot on the team, but maybe kind of trending's, I don't know if I want to say fully down, but maybe the arrow is a little bit down. I wanted to see a little bit better performance from him, because it seemed like he was having a good camp too. But it just felt like there were at times in that game that just maybe he was a tick too slow to getting to the play, to flowing to the football. Offensively, Jordan Morgan had himself a very good game. Rewind it to the beginning of camp, when you had Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst talking about that left tackle battle, and kind of insinuate, it's going to be hard to take the job from Rasheed Walker because of his experience. Well, Rasheed Walker has been dealing with a groin injury, and Jordan Morgan has been getting a ton of action at left tackle, and I thought Jordan Morgan had himself a pretty solid game Saturday night against the Jets. Didn't allow a single pressure from the left tackle spot. And if he continues to do this while Rasheed Walker is missing time, maybe week 1, Jordan Morgan will be the starting left tackle. But out of 23 pass blocking snaps, didn't allow a single pressure. Played a total of 36 snaps. Belton, the rookie, the massive offensive tackle, second-round pick, was solid in the run game. Also didn't allow a single pass pressure. So, you like to see those two performances. I don't know what his future is going to be, what position he's going to be, because he ain't going to be taking over right tackle anytime soon with Zach Tom, with that new deal. But he's a second-round pick. Eventually, he's going to be probably a starter on this line. Probably not this year, possibly next year. But he put together a solid performance too, I thought. So, while the whole wasn't very good, it was a dud. It was a clunker. There wasn't a lot of big plays. There was a lot of holding penalties. I thought Jacob Monk, for a guy that may be fighting for a spot, the holding penalties. Now, I don't know if the officials, I saw some people saying, well, maybe they're calling them a little tight because it's the first preseason game, just to kind of, try to help these players clean things up and such. I've seen that out there before too. But not a great performance from a guy like Jacob Monk, I thought. But again, going back to what I was trying to say, the whole game was a clunker. It stunk. It was boring. Not a lot going on. You had receivers dropping balls. Romeo Doubs, not a great performance from him. Not a great performance from Malik Heath. you'd like to see, I think guys like those veterans are going to be under the microscope more if they continue to drop balls and such. But it was a poor game. Matt LaFleur very frustrated after the game. But if you break it down, there were some individual performances like, okay, you got to give a little bit of credit to so-and-so here. Individually, they may have had a good game, or they had a good game. And we kind of went through some of those guys. And we obviously went through some of the guys that really struggled a little bit too. We got to see a little bit of a Matthew Golden, though. Nice slant route. Picked up the first, but then called back. I'm excited to see 22 get more act. I can't wait to see what Matthew Golden's role is going to be with this team throughout the season. Like, I know was it last week or maybe it was the week before? We talked about what's a realistic expectation for Matthew Golden. And the thing is, though, a little overreaction maybe from a stupid preseason game. But if you got receivers that are going to continue to drop the ball, at some point, it's going to be human nature is going to kick in, I would imagine, for Jordan Love and be like, okay, I just got to get the ball to somebody who's going to catch it. And that's Matthew Golden. Maybe those numbers go up a little bit more. I'm pumped to see what Matthew Golden can do this year. Saw this. Now, I don't know how much y'all are into, stuff like this. I find it interesting. I don't take it to heart. I like to read other people's perspectives and opinions on sports matters and such, because really everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a thought, and really nobody's right or wrong at this. But ESPN had a 2025 NFL Future Power Rankings projections for all 32 teams. And what they did here, it was multiple contributors to this. And the goal of this was, and I'll just kind of read what they say. Of course, the goal for every NFL team is to win now, but a few franchises are also focused on the long term. In our annual Future Power Rankings, we ranked which teams are primed to be among the league's best over the next 3 seasons. Includes this year, next year, and the following year, 2025 through 2027. So they had their experts, again, a few people on there, to rate each team's quarterback situation, remaining roster makeup, non-quarterbacks, front office, and coaching staff. All right? Where did the Packers rank on this? So, really quick after averaging the results from their panelists, each of the 4 categories was weighted to create the overall score. Quarterback counted for 20%. Roster was 30%. Front office was 25%. Coaching was 25%. And the results were a comprehensive ranking based on how well each team is positioned for the future. Number 1 was the Eagles with an overall score of a 92.6. That's listed as great. So 100, A+, elite. 90 to 99, A. All right, we're going old school. I don't know if it's still this way. My back in my day, the A, B, C, D, F system. Okay. Although they got a bigger gap for D, 51 to 69, very bad. Then 50 and below was F, which is disastrous. But Philadelphia, 92.6, number 1. Number 2, Baltimore, 92.1. Number 3, Kansas City, 89.5. Buffalo, number 4, 87.7. Detroit's 87.2, number 5. And then the Packers came in at number 6. And number 6, 86.2. Their individual ranks, overall roster, take out the quarterback, 5th best in the NFL. They ranked them as the 5th best in the NFL. In fact, all of these Packers were top 10. Quarterback, they ranked number 9. Coaching, 7th. Front office, 7th. So, what do they have to say about the green and gold here? Reason for hope. As the NFL's youngest team last season, Green Bay would probably take the top spot in a ranking that looks at where the teams will stand 10 years from now. Few teams deserve more trust for their drafting and development, and the recent willingness to take bigger free agent swings is a feather in the Packers' cap as well. Reason for concern, though: health, availability, consistency at the wide receiver position. It's been a combination of these factors that has kept this team from fully exploding on the scene. Specifically, Green Bay needs Christian Watson to return from his ACL injury and be better than ever. It also needs Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks to reduce their drops, and for Matthew Golden to have an immediate impact. Nugget to know: the Packers were the youngest team last season by snap-weighted age, 25.3 years. They had the youngest offense, 25, second youngest defense, 25.5, and fourth youngest special teams. Bold prediction: Tucker Kraft will finish the season as a top 4 tight end in fantasy. I want to go back. The reason I'm bringing this all up is I want to go back to the wide receivers and kind of maybe give you a pump the brakes, full throttle Tuesday edition. Is it the wide receiving group position for this Packers team that really could make a huge difference, maybe the biggest difference of any other position group on this team, for this team to maybe hoist the Lombardi Trophy or to, I don't know, miss the playoffs or make the playoffs and be a one and done? Like, is it the wide receiving position group that has this, if they hit their marks and they play up to their capabilities, boy, that makes all the difference in the world. It's a completely different offense. It's a completely different team. But if they play like they did last year and have those drops, it kind of really changes the dynamic of this team. Because I honestly feel like when you think about these receivers and you look at them on paper and you look at maybe what some of these guys did a couple years ago, like a Jaden Reed and a Dontavian Wicks. When I look at this depth chart and I look at a Romeo Doubs, he's not a difference maker, but he's a solid receiver and he's given us some big plays over the last few years. You look at Jaden Reed, maybe their most dynamic receiver right now. Had drop issues last year, though. Dontavian Wicks, you look at the advanced statistics of him getting off the line of scrimmage, and that's why you hear people mention Devontae Adams in the same breath with Dontavian Wicks. The way he can get off the line of scrimmage and his separation, the separation he creates from the corners. Doesn't matter, though, if you can't catch the dang ball. The talent is there, though. And then you throw in a Matthew Golden. Now, I'm just focusing on the wide receivers here. Take the tight ends away. And then maybe we get Christian Watson back in November. October, November. On paper. Okay, on paper. And when you look at some glimpses throughout their careers, that is a group, in my opinion, that's got a ton of talent. But it's also got a ton of potential. Now, potential could be a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, when you think of potential, it's like it's a really good thing. But if you don't hit that potential, then you're like, gosh darn it, it's not a for sure thing. It's not a for sure thing. This group, I look at it, and I'm like, boy, they can really do some things. They could really, really do some things that are really exciting, potentially exciting. But if they don't, if they play like they did last year, it really handcuffs this team. It really handcuffs the offense. Yes, you have Josh Jacobs that you could lean on. Yes, you got some tight ends and Tucker Kraft, and hopefully Luke Musgraves takes a jump in year 3. But I look at these receivers, and I agree with the note where they say the reason for concern is the consistency at wide receiver. This is a group that has to be consistent. If this is a group that can be consistent week in, week out, game in, game out, it could be a dangerous group. But that's the thing. That's the phrase. That's the key there. Could be. They aren't right now. They're not the 2011 receiving group. That receiving group that had a Jennings, a Nelson, a Driver, a Jones, and a rookie Randall Cobb, where you were like 5, 6 deep. They're not there. You hope they can maybe get there. I think the potential is possibly there. But they're not consistent enough. But if they can be, if this is a group that could just catch the dang ball, this could be a dangerous group. And I think if they're clicking on all cylinders, if this is a wide receiver group that can click on all cylinders and play to the potential that they have, play to the level that they can play at, this is a group that can make all the difference in the world for the end result of this team for this season. It's just a big unknown at this point. And if we look at that first preseason game, you're probably like, I know a lot of people are like, oh boy, here we go again. Got a case of the dropsies.